Hockey North is back for 2025, and we're starting the year off with a bang. Lots to discuss. Karissa, great to see your face. How were the holidays, my dear?
Oh, so good to see you too. You know what, Anastasia, I feel like I'm still coming down from a sugar high. I've just eaten so many cookies and sweets, and I'm having a bit of withdrawal, but we're gonna make it through.
We're gonna make it through. You know what? I have a little bit of a sugar withdrawal, but I'm also, I don't mean to like flex, but I think I'm in the best shape of my life since I've retired because I've been so inspired with the PWHL. I've been playing shinny, I've been practicing my figure skating moves, I've been skating. I need to get my skates sharpened, but I'm feeling good, rested. I didn't get much sleep though on the 30th of December. Did you get much sleep? Of course, blockbuster trade, Toronto Sceptres and Ottawa Charge. What do we make of it? Immediate thoughts.
Yeah, well, first of all, I gotta book myself in for a skating lesson with you. Maybe I'll finally be able to skate backwards. But yeah, I mean, my immediate thoughts. I think you got to say Toronto won the trade, right? Obviously, time will tell, and it's way too early to say. But on paper, I mean, we see Savannah Harmon coming in. You know that she already has that chemistry with Renata Fast. Of course, they played together in college, so that's a seamless fit. And then she's going to eat up some of the huge minutes that Fast has been playing over the last year since the league began. She logs huge minutes for Toronto, so you can put Harmon in on the power play to to give Renata Fast a little bit of a rest and maybe to give Toronto just a little bit more puck movement from the back end. But where they really win the trade, Anastasia, I think, is by adding Haley Skamura. So she brings some size to Toronto, and she's not very fun to play against. And Toronto's already one of the most physical teams. So I think in the first game they had her on a line with Emma Malte and Blair Turnbull, and that just sounds like a real headache to have to play against that line. So I think that's a win for Toronto.
Yeah, okay, so hot take. I love that you say Toronto won the trade. We'd be remiss to bring up the fact that Ottawa has won the last 3 road games. So let's take a look at the standings. Sometimes I feel like my head needs to be on a swivel in this league. I mean, only 6 teams. Is Ottawa one of the bigger surprises this, far into the season? I mean, I'm looking at how they have been outshot. As you've said, Mashmeyer standing on her head. I think she's the biggest newsmaker of the entire league. She's been so good. But they're getting the wins. Is that surprising you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ottawa was right there last season, and that's the thing that we talk about in this league is like it's not the NHL where you have 32 teams and there's a huge gulf between number 1 and number 32. This is a 6-team league, and all the games last season were so close. More than half the games in 2024 were determined by just 1 goal, and Ottawa was right there. And I wouldn't have been surprised at all last season if Ottawa made the playoffs and then went on a run like we kind of saw Minnesota do, sneak into the playoffs at the end. It's just every team is so good, and for sure I think you can make an argument that Emmerich Mashmeyer has been Ottawa's MVP, and I'd say she's making a heck of an argument to be Canada's starter at the Olympics next year.
Big moves for Mashmeyer. She's looking very good. I got to admit, I'm a little surprised. I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised with Ottawa, but I'm surprised with Toronto. I'm not panicking yet. I mean, we're 4th through the season. I don't panic with many things. I'm pretty steady Eddie. But at what point are you going, why is this not clicking? Because it's not clicking. And I say that with respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's most surprising for me is that Toronto hasn't been able to score quite as much as we might have expected. I thought going into the season that this team had the deepest offense. Obviously, they're missing Natalie Spooner, and she accounted for, I think it was around 29% of Toronto's goals last year. So that's really hard to replace. But they did bring in Daryl Watts as a free agent over the summer. We saw them draft Julia Gosling. We saw them draft Izzy Daniel, and she's been a pretty good surprise so far. But they're just not quite. They just don't quite have that depth scoring coming to play. And then the other issue is, I think we've seen Kristen Campbell maybe lose the reins a little bit on that top starter job.
You do mention goaltending. I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were picking Canada's goaltending in order, who would you pick?
Ooh, for the Olympics next year?
Let's say, yeah, for the Olympics. I mean, it's a year out, but that goes quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think Debian and Mashmeyer, you can write their names in pen, and then it's just a question of who's your starter. I mean, I think it's likely to be Debian, but I think Mashmeyer is making a heck of a case that she should be in the conversation. And then for the third goaltender today, I would pick Corrine Schroeder. I think that she is a brick wall for New York. She had a really good season with New York last year, even though New York didn't have the best season defensively. And I just think right now she's made more of a case than Kristen Campbell. But the season is young, and I think that Campbell does have, more runway to make the argument that she should be there.
And it's interesting because, of course, the PWHL does change kind of what the road to the Olympics looks like. And we have our eye, of course, on Italy. So, yeah, great take, Karissa. We'll have to keep looking at what goaltending may look like. You did mention Corrine Schroeder, though, playing for New York Sirens. I do want to mention, last night, 1,569 people at that game. Have you been talking to the league? What are you hearing about attendance?
Yeah, I mean, so we know they've played 4 games in New Jersey, and obviously last season New York split their games between 3 different states. So that was not an ideal situation. This is, supposed to be more of a permanent home, and it is still quite early, to be fair, but they're averaging just over 2,500 over those 4 games. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Anastasia, last night, it was just a little over 1,500, which isn't ideal. I think it seats just over 16,000 in the Prudential Center. So they're still trying to build that audience in New York. And I did speak to Jana Hefford about this last week. And she said, if we saw the numbers in New York and in Boston as well, which is on the lower end, before the league launched, they would have been happy with them. They were sort of in line with what they expected. But what kind of makes it look out of whack is where they've exceeded expectations, selling out some of these NHL buildings, particularly in Canada. But we're also seeing good numbers. We saw more than 12,000 in Seattle the other day. We saw more than 13,000 in Detroit last season. And Minnesota's performing pretty well too. So, I mean, that is one argument. I don't foresee the league moving away from New York anytime soon. And this comes directly from advisory board member Stan Kasten, who said a little while ago, if you're going to have a pro sports league, you have to be in New York. And so it's just a matter of finding the right home. Is it New Jersey? I think that remains to be seen. I mean, the location is certainly better than what they were working with last season. You can't really argue that it's hard to get to or anything like that. It's just a matter, I think, of growing that fan base.
Well, we do know one thing. CBC is going to be airing the next game on Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Ottawa is hosting the Boston Fleet. I will be ringside, and we're going to be bringing you all the goods on Hockey North. Thanks for joining us.